one of the few companies that really married the process of a control surface and an analog work surface is the SSL. A lot of the other companies will give you an analog interface, in other words, A to D and D to A converters that go in and out of the board, but it doesn't give you a real mixing board that works as a mixing board without anything attached to it, which is what this board does. It also has a section where you can go from analog to digital, and now all my faders are going to run what's into the DAW system. But the moment I go back into analog, everything is now running from my analog side, which also means that I am taking analog into the board, mixing in an analog domain, using my analog EQs. And the other thing, I've got my analog reverbs, or a lot of times I'll use one reverb as a cement reverb. It'll kind of go on all the tracks. The other reason I like working in and out of the box is because when there's an idea, like working with Ray, it would get frustrating when he would have an idea and I couldn't turn everything on in less than 5 minutes, be ready to say, go, let's record. With an analog desk, I don't have to have the DAW system hooked up. I can start working, getting sounds, getting my artist working while I'm setting up how I want to use my digital station. So this is my favorite way of working. A lot of people think it's because I'm old-fashioned. I don't look at it as old-fashioned because I watch when I'm working with my clients. When I got a client that sits down and first thing, oh, that's a mixing board. They're not intimidated by a bunch of knobs that don't mean something until you touch it and it says what it is. They see what's there, they know what it is, they feel comfortable. I've been very pleased with using a board like this. It's put me in both worlds. But like in my own studio at home, I still don't have an SSL yet. I have an old Quad 8 board, which is my main thing, and that's what I do a lot of my tracking and everything else on. But I also have a little smaller setup with the little Mackie board and another mic pre's and everything else that it's set up in another little pre-production area. But all my systems are set up that when I'm ready to track or I'm ready to get an idea at 3 o'clock in the morning with an artist, I can turn it on and start getting some sounds down. So it's like you don't have to go with something that's elaborate. A simple mixing board, because what it does, it gives you an aux send for the headphones. You can have a cheap PCM 60 reverb on it or whatever old little reverb you had that now whenever the headphones are on, you got reverb in it. So what I'm saying, it just puts a comfortable feeling right away. I can go get all the rough mixes, the types of effects. If I'm going to use, I have a UAD plug-in card. And I like to use EMT 140s. A lot of the studios I go to have plate echoes still. So I'll use that and I get the ideas of my sounds and I can transfer it to the real world. So when I come to the studio, I'll break it out in all the individual stems or the individual channels and mix on the mixing board. The other thing I do too, as I'm mixing in my analog domain, I tend to want to come out of that domain, use a set of compressors on my stereo track, a set of EQs. My favorites, of course, is the Manley. I don't master at this point. A lot of people think I'm mastering. I'm just nudging. I'm using that EQ to cement all the individual EQs I did in my mix. I'm using the compressor very lightly just to smooth that top and make everything blend together. Another thing I like to do, and I've done it for years, I know a lot of engineers, but before these little boxes came out with the VU meters in them, we would tend to bring a 2-track tape machine into the studio, not because we wanted a 2-inch analog anymore, but because it had VU meters on it, and we could mix the VU meters. So I still, to this day, use a type of VU meters as my summing so I can mix, because I know that certain movement a VU meter makes, you know when you got a slam and mix, you know. You hear it, you see it, you feel it. So I run my little analog setup like this. My setup I do at home and at the studios, I run from my main DAWs to another DAWs that's my 2-track DAWs. And the reason I do that is because typically when I'm mixing, I'm in a 96, 192 environment. A lot of times I still want a high resolution master at 96, but I'm also making a CD master, I'm also making an MP3. And both of those I master differently, or I should say I mix differently than making a high resolution. I try to mix for the media it's going to. It's gotten to be that I always wind up with a 2-track computer. As we've changed technology, I don't throw away the old one. You know, it's not multi-tracking anymore, it's just doing the 2-track.